So late last night, after a year, more than a year, of thinking about this thing and picking colors for this thing, dyeing yarn for this, weaving it, I finally finished making the blanket. Hi guys, thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Felicia from SweetGeorgia, and every Friday I come to you as part of this Taking Back Friday vlog to talk to you guys about SweetGeorgia things, School of SweetGeorgia things, yarn things, color things. This week I want to talk to you guys about weaving things. Now, if you guys follow this video, you will have seen that for probably over a year now, I've been thinking about making this ginormous mohair blanket. It has consumed me. I bought special yarn for it. I dyed multiple batches of yarn for it. I stressed about the colors. Like, it has been kind of like an epic project in my mind. At the end of the day, I finally finished the blanket and I gifted it. So I basically finished it on Saturday night, almost midnight, and then I had to wash it and fold the blanket. And then once it was fulled, although the fringe had folded together, so I had to separate all the fringe in order to let it dry. And then once it was dry, then I gifted it to my friend on Sunday afternoon. But Sunday was a crazy busy day. And so I had this very, very, very tiny little sliver of time on Sunday morning where I talked about the blanket, and I recorded this tiny little bit about my excitement of pulling this blanket off of the loom and finishing it and what it was all for and everything. So I'm going to show you that little snippet of clip of of me talking about the blanket that I recorded on Sunday morning before I had to give it away to my friend. Okay, so I just wanted to take a really quick second to talk about this hand-woven blanket that I made. It's going to be a gift. I'm giving it later on this afternoon. And so that's why I have to shoot this very, very quick video to show you a little bit about the blanket before I pack it up and give it away. But I'm really, really, really excited about this blanket. Just having it off the loom now. I finished this blanket last night, and so finishing for me basically involved hem stitching the last line, the last couple of weft picks of the blanket. And so I hem stitch it to basically stitch it in place so that it doesn't go anywhere when I actually go to wash the blanket. So let me give you a little bit of a rundown of this blanket. This is humongous. So basically, this blanket is very, very, very simple. It is 100% this mohair and nylon blend yarn. It's a brushed mohair yarn. It is set at 6 ends per inch. That means that there's 6 threads in every 1 inch section, and it is 270 ends wide. So it's approximately 41, 42 inches. I think this I measured was 41 inches on the loom and off the loom. And I decided, out of the 270 ends, I decided to divide them roughly in 5 so that I had 5 stripes. So you can see the 5 stripes this way. And then with each one of those 5 warp colors, so you can see there's this dark rosy kind of grapefruit color. There's another lighter grapefruit color. This one is the Earl Grey color. And then I think this is Clearwater, and at the bottom is Lupine. So there's 5 warp colors and weft colors. So I put those 5 colors into the warp, and then I wove squares with those same colors in the same order. And so that produced kind of like a color gamp effect. And so by color gamp, I mean you can see that when it's all woven together, I'm going to need to take pictures of that. You can kind of see, that each one of those colors sort of overlaps with another one of the colors, and they produce another color. So with these 5 colors that I dyed and then wove into this blanket in this format, you know, with 5 colors going this way, 5 colors going that way, then I produce with those interlacements 15 individual color blocks. So, you know, this is one color block, this is one color, this one is the same color as this because they're woven with the same 2 colors. This would be another block, you know, and so on and so on. And so ultimately, like over here, I think that these colors are really, really interesting. You know, this one here is actually made of the lupin, which is really like a blue purple. And then when it's crossed with this grapefruit red, if you squint your eyes, it produces like a whole other color. Like there's just so many things happening. I had this hung up in the bathroom so that it would dry, and I just kept looking at it for a long time last night, just kind of looking at all the different colors that come out of this. This is like so many possibilities. There are so many possibilities in this one very, very simple structure. In any case, this is the blanket. It is just 100% mohair, 270 ends. At first, what I did was I started weaving it, and the mohair is it's quite sticky, right? So there's all this little fibers and fluff everywhere, and so it was kind of sticking to itself. And I thought, oh, this is going to be quite difficult, you know, to make it through the entire blanket and have all of this warp sticking to itself. But I just turned up the tension just a little bit, and it just helped to clear everything. And if there was any trouble with getting that warp to clear, I would just take the beater and then just move it a little bit, just kind of wiggle it, and then everything would kind of release itself. So it was actually not too frustrating or bad to work with this warp at all. The one thing that I found kind of frustrating was working with a ski shuttle. A ski shuttle is this is a ski shuttle. So it looks like a ski, right? So you put your weft yarn on here, and then you have to kind of unhook it every time you want to weave one pick, because you have to take the yarn off and you have to kind of have an idea of how much yarn to take off in order to make it work. And so that I found kind of annoying, because I was always either not doing enough or releasing too much, and it was just always trying to handle this extra or not enough weft yarn. So I much prefer using the end feed shuttle that I have from Shacked, but I just was not sure if I could put this mohair yarn through the end feed shuttle without it getting everything all gummed up and everything. So I just stuck with this and made do with that. So that was that. Last night I got to finishing the blanket, which is basically I wove 5 weft stripes and then another 5 weft stripes. So altogether 10 of these weft stripes. Each one of these weft stripes is like 9 inches wide. No, 9 inches. So yeah, overall, when I took the blanket off the loom, the measurements were 41 inches wide by 82 inches long. And then after I washed it, it kind of shrunk a little bit. It shrunk a little bit to 38.5 inches wide and 78 inches long. So there was a little bit of shrinkage in both directions. I didn't calculate exactly how much that is. 10%, something like that. And yeah, so before I could take it off the loom, I had to do a little bit of hem stitching. I was a really good girl, and I did hem stitching at both sides this time. So that means that once the weaving part is finished, I take some extra weft yarn, and then I do what's kind of like a bit of a whip stitch, but it's called a hem stitch because you're more like a blanket stitch. You're going into the fabric and then encircling some of those warpy threads, and then going into the fabric and then encircling the warp threads. And so in this way, the weft that you've placed into your fabric won't fall apart when you go to wash it in the wash. So I did the hem stitching, and then I cut it off about 4 inches of fringe. So you can see it's about 4 inches of fringe here. And so then I popped the whole thing into my front load washer. So initially I set the front load washer to the hand wash cycle. There's like, I have a hand knit function on my washer, but then when I looked at what was happening in that cycle, it wasn't actually doing anything. There was no agitation, which I guess makes sense. So it kind of filled up the basin a little bit, and then the blanket just sat there. And I thought, well, this is not going to do anything. So I turned that off and then changed it back to the regular cycle, put more water in, and put a little bit of soak in, and then just watched it agitate for about 5 minutes. And then I stopped the machine, let it drain, and spin out all the rest of the water. Now, I was watching the entire time because I was thinking, oh, is it too much? Is it not enough? Is it too much? Is it not enough? And I think 5 minutes was maybe on the heavy side. I mean, like, the fabric feels good. It feels nice and solid and full and beautiful and warm and cozy and all of that. But the fringe was all like matted up and knotted. And so I wonder if I had agitated it for 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes, maybe the fringe would not have been so mangled. So part of what I had to do was put the blanket up, hang it over the shower bar, and then brush it a little bit while it was damp. I used like a baby hairbrush, clean baby hairbrush, and then just kind of brush it in one direction the whole way to kind of fluff up that surface of the mohair. And then at the same time, take all of those clumps of fringe and hand separate them. So 270 ends times 2 had to separate all those individual ends back into regular fringe. And it looks okay. Fringe. But I am loving the color combinations, all of the intermixing and playing of the different colors here. It is very, very cool. And then as I was finishing those last few picks of this blanket, I was thinking, oh, now that I'm done, what can I do differently? What could I do it next? Like, what other project can I do? Because there's other weave structures that I'm really, really particularly interested in right now. I'm really wanting to do a lot of rep weave projects right now, which is basically very, very warp faced. So taking your warp and squishing it together very, 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 very tightly so that all you see in the fabric is just the warp yarn. And then I'm also very interested in a lot of very weft faced fabrics right now too. Like, yeah. So So I basically, I guess I'm looking at weave structures that require no intermixing or interplay of different colors. I'm looking at purely just warp colors or weft colors. That's very interesting. But in any case, as soon as I finished this blanket, I was like, maybe I could make another one. Maybe I could make another blanket. What other colors would I pick and choose to put together? But you can see it's like actually pretty drapey and comfortable and warm, and so I do love this blanket. If you guys have a chance to join Jane Stafford's online guild to learn how to weave, to learn how to do any of these things, I highly encourage it. So basically, she's had 2 years of content so far. The first year was all about the basics of learning how to weave, and at the end of that year, you learn how to make the mohair blanket. And then the second year is about color and design. So a lot of things to do with color gamps, to talk about different colors overlapping with different colors and how they produce completely different colors, that kind of work. And so I basically combined the first year content and the second year content and made a color gamp out of mohair as a mohair blanket. So it was absolutely fantastic, and I'm actually really, really looking forward to her next year's worth of content, which starts in January. So next year, I believe she is doing content that is related to a course that she taught before, which I actually took in person before, called Pushing the Boundaries of Plain Weave. And it's basically taking plain weave and going in other directions, either by doing things like squishing the warp threads together or spreading them out, or alternating spreading them out and squishing them together, all sorts of things like that to make warp faced fabrics, make weft faced fabrics, basically taking that balanced fabric where you have warp and weft and then manipulating that fabric either by squishing things or spreading things apart. It is very, 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 very cool. And it's a very interesting way of taking fabric and one step further and thinking about what else you can do. So I'm really excited about looking at that content again, because I took that course many, many years ago. I remember it very fondly, but it would be nice to be able to go through it again. I'm excited that this blanket is off the loom. And now it's just a matter of thinking about what to put on next. I had all these grand ideas of big, 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 big project that I want to put on the loom. But I love this blanket so much. I kind of want to make one more blanket before I move this, because otherwise I'd have to move everything that I've already threaded. This is already set up to do a blanket. I can just tie on another blanket right now. So kind of at a crossroads right now. So that is it. This is all about the blanket right now. So if you want to ask me questions about the blanket, if you want to make your own blanket, if you, talk to me about the blanket, you can just leave me your comments in the comments below. And I'm really excited to talk about this blanket right now. So that was all of the excitement about this hand-woven mohair blanket. I love the blanket. It was cozy, it was warm. Like, I sat with it folded on my lap for just a second when I was talking to my husband about it, and then it was quite warm. My legs were getting quite warm. So I just feel like this is the perfect blanket for sitting and watching TV, just cuddling up in the wintertime. I think it'll be really, really great for that. Now that my loom is already set up for this blanket, it's got 270 ends across, and it's all threaded, it's all ready to go. Even though I have other weaving projects that I would really like to use and make on that big loom, on the big spring loom, I kind of feel like I should make another blanket because it's already set up with this sort of template. So then the question is, like, do I go and buy more yarn for this, dye more yarn, come up with a new color palette, make another blanket for myself or for somebody in my family? I'm thinking about it because it's kind of a waste to just like get rid of this entire template and start from scratch again. I mean, I could, but this is why you need more than one floor loom, right? So that's why we're sitting here today. I'm here at the Shacked Baby Wolf loom. And so last night, I basically went through and I exploded my Handspun yarn stash and have made a little warp to put onto this loom so that I can weave something in the moment while I'm still thinking about what's going to go on the other spring loom. Several weeks ago, when I was at the retreat with Katrina and with Rachel and with the girls, what I was thinking about and what I was talking with Rachel about was how I felt very strongly about how I want to start 2019 with no more handspun yarn stash. I want to just obliterate, blow up, and completely use all of my handspun yarn stash so that I can start 2019 with like a fresh slate. I don't know why this is so important for me. I feel like I need to clear all the decks, clear everything, tabula rasa, start from blank slate again. I sort of feel like if I start from zero again, then I can really observe and see how my handspun has changed over the years, how it has maybe improved. Right now, I have like so much handspun yarn. This is handspun yarn here. There's handspun yarn all over the table over there. Basically, there was 2 full cubbies back there in the IKEA cabinet, 2 full cubbies that were all full of handspun yarn. And so I want to take all of those out and do something with them. So one of the things that I'm thinking about doing is taking a bunch of skeins in slightly different but corresponding colors and use that to knit the night shift, or to knit that project that was designed by Andrea Maury, who made the it's a night shift, or it's called the other one, but it's the cowl version of that pattern that she designed that uses the spin cycle yarn. So what I was planning to do was, I have a bunch of skeins here. I have this one from a long time ago. This is Storm Chaser. This is our Storm Chaser colorway in a superwash BFL. It's 2-ply, just really simple. And then I have this one, which was called Unicorn Frap. And this one was designed after, like the Starbucks Unicorn Frappuccino, with those colors in mind. And I did this as a Navajo 3-ply, but the weight of these looks like they're somewhat similar. So I'm going to put those two together. And then I also have a couple of other skeins here that I'm not sure how I'm going to incorporate, but there's this one, which was a club colorway that we did a couple years ago called Glamping. And this one, it's called Glamping. So maybe that one in the mix. And then I thought I would use these two purples together, sort of not hold them together, but basically use one until it runs out and then continue with the other one because they're both sort of purpley, and use that as a third color. So these together to make that night shift cowl. Thinking about something like that. So basically trying to use up these colors. And then I have this beautiful skein here. This looks like it's BFL in silk. And this is a super, super, super old club colorway that we did. I think it was called Storm Sanctuary. And I remember I loved spinning it. But now it's just like this heavy lace weight yarn that I think could work really well as weft. Maybe I could use it as warp. I'm not sure. But just all of these things, I really want to get rid of them. So last night what I did was I went through my yarn stash and I sorted things a little bit by color. And I found previously that all of my handspun seems to be either in a purple sort of range or an orange sort of range or a green range. And so I picked a whole bunch of the orangey kind of skeins. Actually, these 4 handspun yarns. And they're mostly superwash BFL, I think is what they are. Some of them are club colorways. Some of them are test colorways. Some of them are literally like this one here. This is Panda. This is basically fiber that I put into a pan and did a low water immersion dye with it. And I did it with leftover dye from a workshop that I taught at Vogue Knitting Live. So basically at the end of the workshop, everybody's used a whole bunch of dyes and there's a whole bunch of dye left over. And when you're in a hotel, you can't really dump all of that dye down the drain. I wouldn't do that anyways. Always what I do is I pour it over a whole bunch of fiber and I cook it to get rid of and exhaust all of that excess dye. So that's what this skein is. It's just fiber from exhausting a whole bunch of leftover dye. But I love it. I love how it turned out. And so I put these 4 colors, these 4 skeins together and held them together to wind a warp. So here on the loom here, I have this warp that is all orangey colors, and it's kind of neat, right? Like this is a pile of orangey, kind of greeny, kind of woodlandy kind of colors, but there are very distinct colors in here. So like in this particular skein, there's also a little bit of purple and green and orange. And here there's a little bit of wine and a little bit of berry and a little bit of chocolate brown and a little bit of ebony brown. Like there's actually lots and lots of color happening here. And it becomes more apparent when you see it actually on the loom. So I'm going to do a close-up here so that you can see what it looks like on the loom here. So now my decision is whether or not I should use the rest of the handspun yarn to go in as weft, or if I should use these cones up here. So these are cones of 100% silk. This is 100% silk noil, and I bought this like years ago, maybe a decade ago, when I was traveling in Japan. I went to Kyoto. There's a beautiful little yarn store out there called Avril. And so I went to Avril with my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, with Dan, and we walked around Kyoto. We went to this yarn store, and he helped me carry all this yarn back. Yeah. It was a lot of yarn. I bought it in a lot of colors, 100% silk noil. And yeah, there's a beautiful color here. This is kind of like a wine, kind of, yeah, brownish, purplish, wineish kind of color. And it's nubbly and tweedy. I love this yarn. It's not super soft. It has a bit of a rough, cottony kind of texture to it. It's also not shiny, which is, it is silk, 100% silk, but it's not shiny. It just feels very rustic is not necessarily the word for it either. It just feels nubbly and tweedy. So I like these 2 colors. I think that both of these would work well as weft in this case. And then I have a little bit of this too. This is like a curry kind of color, orangey, mangoey, curry kind of color. So this could also go in here as weft. I think that this one would blend in a little bit too much. So I think what I might have to do is go through and do a couple of tests and try out the different wefts to see how they react, how they present. But yeah, this is kind of what I want to do for the rest of December, is basically go through my yarn stash, put these colors together, and see what I can produce, because I love working with hand spun yarn. I love working with hand spun in hand woven fabric specifically. And I just want to get rid of this entire stash so that I can start fresh for next year and start newer projects, bigger projects, things that have more intention, things that have a reason for making them. I really don't want to be making a whole bunch of random things anymore. So these things that I make, they are going to be samples. They're going to serve as samples and experiments and information for future projects. But I kind of have to feel like I have to get through all these samples, make all these samples so that I have the information, so then I can go and do some intentional project planning. That's really, really where I want to go. Now, in and around all of these things, I finished that sweater last week, the boxy worsted. I love the boxy. I wear it all the time now. I really do enjoy it. Now, having finished that large knitting project, I could make a bunch of smaller hats and other knitting projects. I feel like I really need to have a project with me at all times, going to soccer practice with my kids and going to swimming, and just I need something in my hands. But I'm stalled because of my inability to say no to things. And so I find myself in a very special, very, very positive situation of having had one of my designs accepted into a book project. And the thing is that I have to design a pair of socks. They're going to be worsted weight socks, and I have to design this pair of socks, and I have to design and knit them and have it all ready, I think, by January and shipped out by January. So while I have all these things that I want to make, and I want to spend time in the attic, and I want to spend time knitting and all these kinds of things, I do need to buckle down and focus on this sock project that I need to finish. And yeah, whenever I think about the sock project, I was like, what was I thinking? Why did I, why did I do this? But when it's done, it'll be good. So I'm excited about that. So that is all the stuff that's currently on my plate right now. And I am looking forward to December, because December is when we're also going to knit some of the Advent. I think I'm going to be behind. I feel like I'm already behind and I haven't even started yet. We're going to knit the Advent, and I'm going to do a lot of planning, and I already have content sort of planned for the school for next year, looking at that. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Now, before I head out, one thing that I want to mention is I have talked about Jen Lucas. She's a knitwear designer. I've talked about her before on this video. I've talked about her on the podcast. I interviewed her on the podcast last year as well. Jen Lucas is a knitwear designer, and she designs tons and tons of things. She's a very prolific knitter, very prolific designer. She does do a lot of shawl designs. And one of the things that has just come out recently is November 15th, she released her new book, which is all about top-down shawls. Top-down shawls are one of my most favorite ways to knit shawls. Yes. I mean, asymmetrical shawls have taken on sort of like a very, very popular, it's been very popular over the past year or two, of maybe 3. But these top-down circular shawls, top-down triangle shawls, those are, like, for me, they feel classic. They feel like the ultimate comfort knitting, right? You know how it's going to go, and it's easy and simple and fun to do. So Jen Lucas just came out with a new book, November 15th. It's called Top Down Shawls. And we have a copy to give away, and inside the book there is actually a pattern that is designed using our yarn, using a DK weight yarn. So you can just imagine, top down shawl, DK weight yarn. That's going to go really fast. It's going to be really easy, comfortable, potato chip knitting. It's going to be great. So if you are at all interested in a book of top down shawls, I encourage you guys to come and join our giveaway. We have a giveaway where we will send out a copy of Jen Lucas's book, and we can pair it with some DK yarn to make the shawl that is in that book. So if you guys are interested in entering that giveaway, please do hit the link below and you can enter your info there and you will be entered in the giveaway. And we'll do the draw like we normally do. We'll do it in 2 weeks, and we'll let you know if you are picked to be the winner. So that is it for this week. Thank you guys so much for being here with me in the attic. Thank you guys so much for watching this. Please do hit like if you like this episode. And if you don't mind, leave me a comment and let me know if you do any weaving, if you do any spinning, what you are planning for the new year, what kind of things you want to learn in 2019. I'm actually really, really interested, because if I were to draw the Venn diagram of who we all are, I know that you guys, there's a lot of you guys who are knitters, some of you guys are crocheters, some of you guys are spinners, and some of you guys are weavers. And I wonder about this overlap of where everyone overlaps, and if there are people who are knitters and spinners and dyers and weavers and all of those things all at the same time. I'm really curious about that. So please do leave me a comment below and let me know about what your interests are, what you want to see me talk about and do next year. I'm thinking about all those things right now. So do hit like if you like this episode, and hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!